It can't stop the day we dissect the news, flipping on the edge, choices to choose. Politics and laughter, a blend that's so real. Tune in for the stories that make you feel. With guests from every angle, let's bridge the divide. Finding the truth in the humor we can't hide.
You had told me that Jeff Bezos would be one of the richest men in the history of the world. Like when I used to see old videos of him years ago, I was like, this guy? He comes across like just a D&D geek or something, you know? But to fast forward 10 years and to see where people go, I think it's quite humbling. And it's also, it tells me that even though right now we're in the doldrums and I feel like we're in this crazy, confusing time, you don't know what just even like 5 years could be like. Like one of the activities I do with my kids is like, can you see yourself in 5 years? 5 years ago this month, every one of us was hunkering down for the pandemic. I mean, think about what it was like to go through that. I'm sure that our viewers out there could remember it too. It was surreal. My dog had just died. We had literally put her to sleep. I go to work the next day. I'm out of it. And they're going, yep, well, guys, we're going to close for the next, our school's going to close for the next 8 months. And we're going to become an online school. And we know how well that worked out, right? But it could also be the other way. Like in 5 years from now, I wonder. Like, so what do you think? In 5 years, what might the world look like?
That was always my least favorite question on my employee evaluations. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Yeah. I don't know. Because of that. Because if I look back 5 years, I'm probably shocked. I would be shocked to know where I am right now. The hopeful me hopes that we find a way to settle down. We find a way to be less broken, less split as a country.
Atomized, yeah.
Yeah, but I don't know. I'm not in the business of making predictions.
Okay.
Because anything I try and predict will not come true.
So you don't think a billionaire? You won't be a billionaire in 5 years?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Again,
Okay.
I was a journalist and now I'm a college teaching professor, so I don't see that happening.
Retired, maybe?
No, more like 8 or 9 years to retirement.
8 or 9 years to retirement. Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking about 5 for me for retirement from at least education, but not from the work world. So, but in 5 years, I don't know. Are we running around the wasteland or are we traveling the stars? I don't know. This is really hard. I mean, in 5 years.
Not if Musk is in charge.
Well,
we're doing both. If he's in charge, we're doing both. We're trying to escape planet
I
Earth.
think AI's got a big component in that. But I have no idea because I'm thinking in just a few months, I almost don't recognize us.
Isn't that incredible? It does seem. Yeah.
To now, I'm thinking I don't recognize some things about who we are in a couple months. So looking 5 years ahead, I'm like, oh, all bets are off.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I was in class and I asked my students, are you I had just really learned about ChatGPT. I said, have you used ChatGPT? And I mean, no one in class had.
No.
Nobody.
No one
and this
had.
is in college.
This is college students.
Wow.
They just didn't care to admit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
I mean, I knew at that point. And it was so.
Some of your papers come in the same way.
Really, that was at the beginning of the semester. By the end of the semester, it was everywhere. And, the way it's changed our jobs is we can't keep up. We can't keep ahead of it.
No. We're running
There's
to
no
catch
keeping
our
up.
tails. And the other thing that scares me, if I'm being honest, is issues with women's rights and minority rights. Those things just scare me because in just a couple months, the changes with regard to those things is just baffling me in terms of who are we and our values. And so I went and we had a meal just a week ago, just last week, and just hearing that they were out talking to friends and they have friends that were left-leaning but are now saying they don't believe women should have the right to vote or own property. And this is just something that I would have thought was a joke or would have thought was just extremist positions. But these were people that were solidly left-leaning, saying things like this, and just have gotten a hold of, right-wing propaganda and have really latched on and have taken these positions. And I'm just
So have you ever
shocked.
You ever read
live here.
or heard of this guy Gene Sharp? You ever heard of this guy? So Gene Sharp, it was in the 90s. He wrote a small book called From Dictatorship to Democracy. It was featured on PBS actually a few times and stuff. So he has probably the best manual out there that I can think of for how to resist fascistic totalitarianism types of power systems. And he has he's like 198 specific tips that
Is
you
that
can.
all?
Well, because there's actually unlimited ways to truly resist the forces of fascism that are creeping into society. One of them is to use those power structures like we were just talking about against themselves. So when you have organizations that are competing against each other for validation and stuff, you amplify the systems against each other. Have you noticed this in right-wing media? So like OAN is actually kind of against like Breitbart, and Breitbart is kind of like at times against Fox, and Fox is against you want to amplify those differences with groups. And so right now, even though it seems like hopeless, like left-leaning people are turning right-wing, the truth is there's so much mass confusion right now that I think it's very fluid. I do not, my sense of it is that there is a huge groundswell of people that are more concerned now than ever before about the conditions of democracy, about freedom of the press. I just think that we're not yet in the positions of power we need to be in yet.
They still care about the price of eggs.
Yeah,
Right?
That's for
right,
sure.
because that's going to solve everything.
That's
No,
on
but-
both sides. You hear that.
Yeah, well, those are kitchen table issues, which are important, but still, yeah.
The kitchen table.
I mean,
issue.
that's where people are making their decisions politically. Is my eggs are too expensive. That's not a reason to make a political
Right.
decision and vote
I know.
for a particular party because eggs are expensive.
Well, we would talk
Thank
about this
you.
earlier,
Thank
that
you.
maybe it requires people losing their Social Security benefits. Maybe it requires people losing their Medicare or their Medicaid or their pensions, or they lose their... Once people see it, once it's visceral and it's actually touching them, the hope is that you'll wake up.
That's the only.
You know,
time.
you won't become woke, although that's good.
Well-
but you'll wake up to the idea that we're not living in the same kind of society where we can just play the price of eggs game and try to hide behind, I'm an independent. Because the truth is, I'm not sure anybody can really say they're independent in an era when we have technocratic fascism on the march right now. You're going to have to pick a side.
I love people who say that they're for, like they're libertarian and they're for, complete freedoms, and then they'll say, but I want to deny somebody else their freedom.
Right.
It doesn't even have any meaning anymore. I don't even think
Right.
those kind of terms they've lost their validity.
But I
We'll
want
have to see it.
state-sponsored religion,
Right.
Well,
sure.
the problem with libertarianism is the fact that no one is in charge. Well, if no one is in charge, who is actually in charge?
Someone is in
Yeah,
charge.
right.
Someone is in
Yeah,
charge.
yeah.
And that's exactly it. It's like someone is always in charge.
Well, and I tell my libertarian friends, because I've got some in my country band and stuff, I'll go, hey, you really want to go to a libertarian paradise? Head on over to Liberia or head on over to Somalia. There's no government there. There's no government to stop you from being whatever you want to be. Good luck.
I mean, I do think, I have long thought our government is too big, but...
That's a far
Well,
cry
it's a big
from what we're
country.
seeing,
Yeah,
right?
I
It's a
mean,
big
but,
country.
Yeah.
but the way that it's too big and the things that aren't necessary out of government, we still need those things. I guess if I'm trying to find some silver lining to like the burn it all down that we're going through right now, is that maybe, reasonable people will take charge next and be able to build these institutions back in a reasonable way that everyone can support so that people are being taken care of. The world is being taken care of, that scientists are listened to, and that, I'm concerned about weather forecasts. I'm concerned about the lack of information about health, and
Yes.
those are things that we need a government to
actually provide to
Yes.
fund studies that NOAA would do, so that way we know how to predict weather patterns a little bit more accurately, how to be certain that if it says that it's going to be 70 degrees tomorrow, it's not negative 32. No, I could not agree more. The downside is it's really a question of funding. And Rutger Bregman, again, just kind of going back to it, it's like when he was at Davos, and he said, I feel like I'm at a firefighters conference and you're not allowed to talk about water. This is complete nonsense. We have to talk about taxes.
Yeah.
It's taxes, taxes, taxes. Forget all these nonsensical philanthropy schemes that is nothing other than a tax break to the ones that have the ability to have an army of lawyers and an army of tax accountants who are going to find the loopholes that ultimately exist. And we're not going to move forward and to be able to fund anything if there is no funding, which is also kind of interesting because societally you look at it and you're like, I wonder, how come there is not a sufficient support from society as a general? Well, I believe that one day when I make it and I'm a billionaire, I don't want somebody to come after my funds. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You clearly have very little concept of what actually that means as far as money is concerned. And secondly, the biggest issue there is, of course, the funding is going to come from somewhere. And where is it going to come from? From the people who have the funds. What a concept.
Well, and so, I mean, we have a minimum wage. Maybe we need to start having that conversation.
Oh, yeah.
God forbid, about a maximum wage. Maybe nobody needs $1 billion to be happy. We know what the data says about that stuff.
Even if it is $1 billion, even if it's 10, the issue is tipping the scales, right? Having the thumb as far as information is concerned, so you basically have a lot more say in what information is going to be disseminated, how you control the narrative, all of those questions that ultimately arise around those kitchen table issues.
Yeah.
Because at that particular point, it's really just a matter of going back to why it's important. And by the way, I loved your point about having experts that you listen to. I don't have to create a counterpoint anymore. I don't have to beat you on the same plane. All I have to do is discredit you. As long as I can find something to discredit you, that's already enough. And as long as I can point to the fact that you're no longer an expert. You're no longer an expert. It doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter how much you try to fight back. It doesn't matter, because as long as you can control the narrative and you just overwhelm with counterpoints, that's all it takes.
And those who control the narrative traditionally have been people in positions of power that in this country have always come really with money and
Status.
family.
And,
Yes.
The
Right.
Kennedys and the Rockefellers.
I taught a freshman seminar class. It was called Unreality. But the way that we approached it was how we know what we know. And we brought people in from different disciplines to kind of make us think about, we take these things because it's education. We take these things, as truth because it's being taught in a classroom. And we had a history professor come in, and if you look at the history books are written by the people who had money. There were history books.
The victors.
History
winners.
is told from the perspective of rich white men in the United States, at least. That's
How dare
where
you and your wokeism. I'm white. I'm discriminated against because I'm white, and
he had our students do a reading. Though it was a tale about a slave who told one thing to the person who came and interviewed him from, the government. Like, oh, yes, my master's very good to me. It's a great thing. And then was interviewed somewhere else. And somehow they, put this together. And what they told someone else was a whole different story. And so that kind of disconnect, like what is truth when that person is saying two different things. Yeah. But again, it's the power structure of who you're talking to as well. Mm-hmm. So just that idea of really thinking about why we know these things. We used to also have them read read an article. It looked like an academic article about the hole in the ozone layer is a myth. And then we would have them read this article and then ask them questions. And we asked them, what do you think? And they were like, wow, that's amazing. It is a myth. But everything they had learned up until that point, K through 12, before they hit their freshman year, was about the hole in the ozone. And this isn't even climate change, mind you. This is something that is 100% scientifically proven. And yes, it's closed because we did away with the things that were creating the problem.
Yeah.
But the students, I'd say 80-90% of them were like, oh, wow. And I would always say, because I don't know my science, and there were things in the article that said fluoride instead of chlorine, and I would always ask our chemistry professor, but how would I know this?
Well, and that's the problem. I mean, we see it today. It's called flat earthers. I rest my case.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no conversation to be had. Well, where do you go? How do you have that conversation? How do you have that conversation? I mean, based on everything we know, how do you have that conversation? I would really like to know, because you can't. It's really a matter of, it's oftentimes if somebody says, I believe, it's like, it's not a matter of believing. It's really a matter of knowing.
It gets tough.
You or you don't.
Yeah, it does. It gets tough when you're talking about the anti-vax movement and stuff, because it's complex, and you need to understand like what, the what are the germ specialists? I'm losing it. Virologists stuff. What they study for years and years and years just to begin to understand the most basic levels of those things. And then here we are just thinking, no, it's going to change my DNA. And now, right now, this very second, we've got literally a conspiracy theorist running like the National Institute of Health right now in our country. And it's...
Well, apparently it is not an issue. And there's nothing to be concerned about at all.
Well,
about the link between
you just
autism
take vitamin
and,
A to cure measles. So.
Yes.
Oh, is that how that
That's
is?
it.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
fantastic.
That's
Right.
right.
Yeah.
Telling the parents in, what is it, New Mexico, or where there's an
Texas.
outbreak?
Not Texas.
Texas.
Yeah,
Texas.
West
Someone
Texas.
did just die in New Mexico, too.
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
measles.
So
Yeah.
that's, good advice.
I know.
Apparently not good advice. Please don't do that.
No,
But coming
Please
from
seek a healthcare
our
professional.
Secretary of Health or whatever, that's coming from our...
and he's from the former prestigious family that is probably rolling their eyes and shaking
They're more
their
than rolling
heads
their
and-
eyes.
Yeah,
they're
they're not
out there publicly criticizing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
family.
I know.
Again, that won't matter, because it's really just a matter of as long as I can discredit someone, that's all it takes. And it's
Interesting.
not a matter of being right anymore. You don't have to present a counter argument. All I have to do is discredit you. That's sufficient. That's why we're seeing such an impact on professionals, on experts. That's
Sure.
the downside.
So we want to stay away from that stuff. On the Prime Directive, we want to stay in the truth, right? We want to stay close to that stuff. So, like I go to Ground
we
Nudes.
could be wrong. Check us.
No, but I
check
gotta-
us
that's
and
right.
check us again.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
I mean,
right?
that's one thing. I read things and I immediately go to try and find that second source. That's my journalistic training.
Yeah.
But before I repeat things, I want to go and I get information from TikTok. Sure, but then I'm going to go and try and find
Correct.
it. I follow people who are, scientists on Blue Sky, on Threads, and I believe them, but I still have to go check, one, that they're real scientists or who they are.
Yeah.
Two, I want to know. I mean, and that's always my go-to is I just Google something and see what the conversations are out there.
Yeah.
Before I believed that RFK had a brain worm, I went and read more about it.
He really did, folks. He
because
really
it seems
did.
so ridiculous.
Exactly.
Like,
Before he killed a bear and put it in
Or
Central
even
Park.
just what's the background on this? What, okay,
Allegedly.
so I heard this exactly. What is the story?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're somebody who appreciates stories, so you want to know the story.
Or before he sawed the head off a whale and strapped it to the top of his car and drove home with the head of of a whale on his car.
Right. Yeah.
I'm sorry. Is that,
Check it out, folks.
that-
Snopes. Snopes.com. You can actually check it out and see.
Yeah, I do tell students to check out
Yeah,
Snopes.
Snopes is a
yes,
good one. And,
just a quick one, and but again, then you go, okay, who runs Snopes?
Yeah.
Like we just have to,
but-
and then I feel like a conspiracy theorist
I
when
know.
I'm like doubting the truth out there. But I just want to make sure that I have it right.
Yeah.
Because again, that's my credibility.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One of the biggest challenges we have right now, too, as educators in the K-12 system is we have sources out there like this Prager University. Have you seen this thing? Mm-hmm. It's not a real university, but they're calling themselves a university, and it's funded by a bunch of right-wing sources and stuff. They try to put out these
religiously funded.
right. They
It's
try to
like
put
a-
out like these alternate videos of like everything from evolution to how old the Earth is to it's flat Earth stuff. I mean, all kinds of stuff. There's no pay gap. Blah blah blah. They put out all of this
I love that
disinformation
one.
stuff, and it's hard, right? Because you got to painstakingly as a journalist or as a truth seeker, you got to go point by point, and even then, many times you're arguing against a brick wall because people have they got their back up, their dander up, and then don't have an open mind, and you know they've picked their side, and their side is red pilled, and that's what they're gonna die with that red pill. So,
Yeah. I think, but the problem is the fatigue. It really is that fatigue, and I have just information fatigue. I have giving fatigue in a way because I don't have a lot to give, but I try to give. So I try and pick and choose my charities. But then through my social media, I'm just inundated with GoFundMes for people that really need money. And I can't help everyone, though I want to. The one that hit me the hardest, and as far as like, wow, I'm just breaking down, was the fires in LA when suddenly
Yes.
I saw people posting GoFundMes for people who lost their homes in LA, and but at the same time, it was varying,
degrees of
degrees,
need.
yeah. But I'm like, I want to help everyone,
Yeah.
and I don't know how.
Yes.
you gotta
That
give
one
yourself
got
a
me
break,
too.
right? But you gotta give yourself a break. I mean, Laura, you're a good person, and so I mean,
I try to be,
it's-
but-
I mean, my God,
But I know what
you
you're
gotta
talking
pick
about.
one or
That
two
was
and
rough.
leave it at that.
yeah.
I had to stop watching the news on that because it was just killing me.
Yeah.
I mean, we went through that here with fires and
Yep.
people who lost
Yep.
everything.
Yes, we did.
And we pick,
we did.
for us, it's like National Mill Dog Rescue and Humane Society because our hearts are always with the pups and stuff. But
Yeah, I
you just
give-
pick a couple and
I do small amounts monthly to HRC because I really value them. I give.
why
small
do you
amount-
value them in case anybody wants to give on the, what does HRC do?
They support gay, lesbian, trans. They support human beings, really.
Yeah. Nice.
And
Very nice.
the other one I give monthly to a podcast. It's
Do
tell.
Get
Do
some
tell.
ideas.
We're-
Get some ideas, folks.
Yeah.
So on NPR is Kai Rizdal, and he does, I want to say it's Market Watch. And I love the information that they share. They do a podcast called Make Me Smart, and
Oh,
it's
nice.
a daily 15-minute or so. Twice a week, it's about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But during the pandemic, I was listening to that podcast. It was once a week back then, and then it went to 5 days a week. And I just listened to it, and I give to them. So I give to public radio that way.
Nice.
Which is basically also super awesome that you don't, for example, support us. So we are not platforming you because you're a supporter. And we are the opposite of make us smart. We are, Eric, what are we? Make us...
Greater again.
I was hoping you would say that.
That's not.
No, so I and then I give locally to charities that will help as many people as possible, and then I do things like at UCCS we have Clyde's Cupboard, which is food for students. So I try, if I've got things in my pantry, I'm like, I'm not going to use this. I try and bring it in. I did run a group from the chairs and directors in our college. I suggested and I collected money, and I went shopping and bought a ton of stuff for
The
food
Christmas,
drive for
yeah.
Clyde's Cupboard, and so I'm trying to impact as much as I can.
That's fantastic, by the way. Can I just point out how important that is? Can I just point out how fantastic it is? And by the way, for everybody out there, oftentimes I think people are overwhelmed. I think one of the trends that we're inevitably seeing, especially with the younger generation, is is the overwhelming feeling of, I can't really do anything about this. I feel bad about so many things. I'm being bombarded by all this negativity that honestly, it is not a surprise that everybody is anxious. Everybody is concerned. Not surprising at all. And furthermore, I think it further distances people from others. It's a lot easier to spend time on a digital device, whether it's playing video games or endless scrolling or you name it, because it's a lot more comforting. It's basically it's like comfort food. But how important it is to consider something as simple as, I'm just going to go to a store, spend a certain amount of money, invest however much time, an hour, go find a local pantry where someone less fortunate may rely on what I purchased to not be hungry that day. It's like that same story, especially, since Eric kind of mentioned, and of course I know, your all's position on puppy mills and, Humane Society work. When somebody says, well, okay, so you adopt a pet, well, how's that going to solve all of the other pets that are, looking for homes? Well, it may not change everyone's life, but it'll change the life of that one pet. So I feel like if we have that more methodical way of thinking of, well, you know what? I may not be able to change everybody's life, but if I contribute just a little bit and change that person's life for that one meal, great. There we go. I've already succeeded. And if we just kind of change that stance of, having that can-do attitude, because we are American, not Americant, and ultimately have that sense of solidarity, I think this is, there's a way to turn things around. It could be something as simple as holding somebody's door open if you see that somebody's struggling or, carrying something in. It could be letting somebody into your lane on a Monday morning as you're trying to get to work or something. No, this is just a little ongoing joke between Eric and I.
Bad in morning traffic.
I mean, it's making eye contact with people when you're out in the world and smiling at them. Like, that can make a difference. I had some woman come up and knock on my car window when I was at Trader Joe's leaving, and she just said, "I have to tell you, you have a fantastic smile."
Wow.
So kind.
I don't think she was hitting on me. I think I was, but I was and I just, because I see people in the world and I think they have stories, and I'm not just trying to be, I'm on my device plenty, but I'm not like on my device, or I'm not looking down. I try and look people in the eye and smile at them when I see them.
And isn't it amazing you can find the helpers? When you look, like you were just listing off all those charities, and it's overwhelming because you think, oh my God, there's so many. But to me, I think, wow, there's so many because there are so many who want to help.
Yeah. And though the journalist in me, when I see all posts on social media of, I need this, I need that, I'm a skeptic. I have a bullshit detector, and I go, nope, can't. Like, I want, again, I wish I could, but I also won't, because I can't trust what I see out there from individuals necessarily, especially on social media. So that's why I try and go to the organizations that will support them.
Yes.
And being more involved is certainly the best way. Instead of just blanket saying, I'm going to give money to X, it's really just a matter of, no, I'm actually going to purchase some goods that are going to be beneficial based upon the list, whatever, what have you. Or I'm going to volunteer some time. Oh, I'm going to help out for an hour. I can certainly spare an hour. I may not have funds to give, but I'll gladly give away one of my hours to you because I see the value in that. And again, it could be something as simple as smiling. It doesn't need to, and it could literally change, how somebody perceives. I was listening, there's this fantastic podcast, and I believe the gentleman's name is Sean Ryan, former military service member, and he was talking about he was talking to somebody who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, one of those places, and he was and the other counterpart was just kind of saying, you'd be surprised how your demeanor not only changes somebody's perception, but how your demeanor will have a potential positive or negative effect. And so it could be something as simple as smiling at someone, or not, or just have an open sort of like expression rather than a closed off one that could literally change somebody's day.
Right. It can be students in class who are nodding when you talk. That sure helps.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that nonverbal feedback.
I am so sorry. No, for all those times that I wasn't making eye contact.
You were one of the best ones. Are you kidding? You were always like hands up. I'd ask, a question, and Admar was one of the first to have hands up. Always had an answer. I'm like,
shut up already.
Admar's got his hand up. Okay. Yeah, but the students that smile and give you that feedback, you're just like, thank you so much. I feel like I need to send you a thank you note.
I want to come back to one thing, though, because I don't think I really answered it the way I wanted to, but just about that value of higher ed. I do think it's way too expensive. I think somehow it should be a right to everyone in this country to, the same way it's mandated they have to do K through 12. I think that higher education should be an extension of that.
Well, isn't it kind of a national security issue to have an educated population?
Well, yeah, but beyond that too, I mean, I want to say for me, the value of my education was, I can't put a price tag on it. It was a lot cheaper back then.
Agreed.
But everything that I've achieved in my career is because of the education that I received and the people I met along the way.
It just opens doorways. It just opens so many doors.
And mentors.
Yeah. So when I was talking about, is what I'm teaching worth a lifetime of debt? That's a real question. But at the same time, higher education is absolutely worth it.
Balance that lifetime of debt against the lifetime of ignorance and what that would cost.
But
right?
wouldn't it be nice if everyone could go? Wouldn't it be nice if...
Yeah.
Had the option to go, right? Like everyone does have an option to go, but then they look at the price tag and they can't.
Join us on this path, let's ignite the blaze. So grab your headphones tight, let's go for a ride. With every spin and twist, we'll cut and run and hide. The Prime Directive, where the laughter's alive. Society's reflections, let's help each other thrive. Politics and culture, oh what a blend. Join on the journey and let's set the trend. So as we close the chapter, lend us your ear. The Prime Directive's calling, so let's pass that beer. To where the laughter's alive. Society's reflections, let's help each other thrive. Politics and culture,